What if happiness wasn't just a feeling, but something engineered, a product?
Yeah, like dispensed.
Exactly.
You
And
know
what if, total societal stability came at this huge cost, basically everything that makes us human?
Mm-hmm. Welcome to the deep dive. We dig into the source material you've shared to pull out the key insights. Today, we're jumping into Aldous Huxley's, well, absolutely seminal dystopian novel, Brave New World.
It's a big one.
It really is. Our mission here is to take a really comprehensive look at this chilling world he created, the characters, those predictions that feel unsettlingly familiar sometimes.
And its relevance today, which is kind of surprising.
Definitely. We're drawing from detailed Wikipedia excerpts, aiming to give you that shortcut to being genuinely well-informed about this classic.
And it's got that title right. Brave New World, hints at irony from the get-go.
Oh, absolutely. Plus, it pops up on banned book lists all the time, which, tells you there's something powerful, maybe provocative inside, for sure. And Huxley, he was already known as a satirist, right? So he wasn't just writing any dystopia. He specifically called it a negative utopia.
A negative utopia.
Yeah, or a frightening vision of the future.
Hey.
And what's really interesting is that it started as a parody, specifically of H.G. Wells.
Ah, Wells and his more optimistic utopias, like men like gods.
Exactly those. Huxley even wrote in a letter, I think it was to Mrs. Arthur Goldsmith, that initially he was just having a little fun pulling the leg of H.G. Wells.
Yeah,
just teasing him.
Okay.
But then, he said, he got caught up in the excitement of his own ideas. The parody took on a life of its own.
You can really see how that initial spark, that satirical edge, shapes the whole thing, and it connects directly to that title, Brave New World.
Which comes from Shakespeare.
Right. The Tempest, Act 5, Scene 1. It's Miranda, isn't it? Seeing people for the first time.
I wonder, how many goodly creatures are there here? How beauteous mankind is. Oh, brave new world that has such people in it.
But Shakespeare was being ironic then, too. Miranda's just naive. She doesn't see the flaws, the evil in these people.
Precisely. And Huxley grabs that exact same irony, that same kind of double meaning for his world, looks shiny on the surface.
But underneath.
Yeah.
Something quite horrifying.
And the context he wrote it in is crucial, too. It wasn't some long, drawn-out process. He wrote it incredibly fast.
How fast?
Just 4 months. May to August 1931. He was living down in Sennery-sur-Mer in France at the time.
Wow, 4 months.
And think about 1931. The Great Depression was hitting Britain hard. Mass unemployment.
So economic anxiety was everywhere.
Exactly. And that really fed into Huxley's idea that stability was the primal and ultimate need. He saw how society might just give up everything for that sense of calm.
Give up freedom, humanity, all of it, just for stability.
Yeah. It gives it that urgent feel.
And it wasn't just the economy, right? You mentioned his travels. He went to the U.S.
He did. And apparently he was, well, the word used is outraged.
Outraged. By what?
By the culture he saw. This relentless focus on youth. The sort of forced commercial cheeriness. And, well, the sexual openness, the promiscuity, which seemed startling to him then.
Okay. So America in the late 20s, early 30s.
Right. And then on the boat trip over, he read Henry Ford's autobiography, My Life and Work.
Ah, the Ford connection. That feels central.
It absolutely became central. It gave the novel so much of its structure, its character, this idea of mass production applied to everything.
Even people.
Even people. And you can actually see hints of these ideas earlier in his 1921 novel, Chrome Yellow. He was already talking about an impersonal generation, the family unit disappearing.
So the seeds were there.
The seeds were definitely there.
Okay, so let's get into this world state he built. Set in AF 632. That's after Ford, right?
After Ford, yeah.
Yeah.
Corresponds to our 80-25-40 London. And it's entirely built on Ford's assembly line principles.
Mass production.
Homogeneity, predictability, constant consumption, always buying new things.
And Ford is like a god figure.
Pretty much. They say our Ford instead of our Lord. They make the sign of the T for the Model T.
Oh!
Ford Day celebrations. And the calendar, starting in 1908, the year the first Model T was produced. It's total Fordism.
A religion of the assembly line. So if everything's manufactured, what about the people? How are they made?
Well, that's the chilling part. Humans are literally manufactured in artificial wombs. They call it environmental engineering.
To create different social classes.
Exactly. Intelligence-based castes. Alpha, beta, gamma, delta, epsilon, from the top down.
And how do they ensure people fit into those roles?
Through conditioning, right from the embryonic stage. They treat the embryos with chemicals, optimize the higher castes, they say, but really it's about deliberately impairing the lower ones.
Deliberate impairment.
Yes. And then, once they're decanted, that's their word for born, out of the bottle.
Decanted. Ugh.
Yeah. From that moment, it's hypnopedia, sleep learning, whispering messages into their ears while they sleep.
What kind of messages?
Things to make them love their own caste, accept their place. To believe the other classes are necessary, but maybe, a bit unpleasant. Everyone conditioned to be happy with their lot.
And they even wear different colors.
Uniform colors for each caste. Alpha gray, beta mulberry, gamma green, delta khaki, epsilon black. Instant visual identification. Social hierarchy made visible.
Okay, this is important because there's a common misunderstanding here, isn't there? People often think Brave New World is mainly about genetic engineering, like CRISPR babies or something.
Right. And that's not quite it.
Can you clarify that? Because the book talks about eugenics.
It does, but it's crucial to understand what Huxley meant by that then. As geneticist Derek Sokode points out, the novel doesn't really feature genetic testing or direct gene manipulation as we think of it. It's about hormones, chemicals, environmental conditioning during development.
So manipulating the environment of the embryo, not the genes themselves?
Primarily, yes. And the focus is often on impairing the lower castes, like limiting oxygen to the epsilon's brains, not necessarily perfecting the alphas through genetics. Eugenics and dysgenics were practiced, but it referred more to selective breeding and this kind of environmental or chemical treatment.
Okay, so techniques like the Bokanovsky process.
Exactly. That's key. Making up to 96 identical twins from one egg. It's about mass production, uniformity through cloning, not genetic enhancement.
Or Podsnap's technique, speeding up egg maturation.
Right. Those were about industrializing reproduction. Huxley's real fear, it seems, was totalitarian control enabled by technology, not necessarily the specifics of, say, gene editing, which wasn't really on the horizon then.
It's about control, total control.
Okay.
And if, despite all this conditioning, someone still feels unhappy...
well, there's Soma.
The perfect drug.
The perfect drug. Soothing, happiness-producing. Takes you on a little holiday. It's the answer to any residual unhappiness, as these call it. Any flicker of discontent, just take some Soma.
A chemically enforced happiness? No room for real sadness or anger or anything difficult?
None at all. Which leads us to the characters living in this world. Who are they? Let's start with Bernard Marx.
He's our main sort of viewpoint character early on. An alpha plus.
An alpha plus, yes. Supposed to be at the top. But he's a misfit. Physically, he's shorter than other elses. There's a rumor maybe some alcohol accidentally got into his blood surrogate before decanting.
So he feels inferior.
Deeply. And it makes him resentful, angry. He doesn't like the casual sex, the communal activities. He even avoids Soma sometimes. He's critical of the world state.
Which makes him unpopular.
Very. And puts him on his boss's radar for potential exile.
And then there's Helmholtz Watson, another alpha plus misfit.
Yeah, but his issue isn't physical. He's brilliant, a gifted writer, an emotional engineer, they call him, but he feels unfulfilled.
Why?
Because all he gets to write is propaganda, jingles, hypnopedic phrases. He feels capable of more, something meaningful, but the society has no place for real art or deep thought. He feels stifled.
A different kind of outsider. And Lenina Crown, she seems more typical.
Lenina's a beta, a fetus technician. She's described as beautiful, popular, pneumatic is the word they use.
Pneumatic.
Yeah, kind of curvy, desirable. And she's very conventional. She enjoys her life, accepts the promiscuity expected of her. Everyone belongs to everyone else is the same.
But she has a little quirk.
A tiny one. She dates one man, Henry Foster, exclusively for 4 months, which is considered a bit weirdly possessive in their world. But generally, if unwelcome emotions surface, she reaches for Soma. She embodies the sort of contented conformity.
Okay, so these are our world state characters. The
Now,
story really kicks off when Bernard takes Lenina somewhere completely different, right?
Exactly. He uses his connections to arrange a trip to the Savage Reservation in New Mexico.
What's that like?
It's a place where people are still born naturally. They experience disease, aging, religion, things completely unknown in the world state. The culture is described as similar to contemporary Pueblo peoples, like the Hopi or Zuni. It's a total shock to the system for Bernard and especially Lenina.
And they meet someone important there.
2 people. Linda, a woman originally from the world state, a beta minus. She got lost on a visit years ago while pregnant.
Pregnant? That's forbidden in the world state.
Absolutely scandalous.
Okay.
And the father. Turns out to be the director of hatcheries and conditioning, Bernard's boss.
No way! The irony.
Huge irony. Linda's an outcast on the reservation, too, because her world-state conditioning makes her promiscuous, which clashes horribly with the villagers' values.
And her son?
John, known as the Savage. He's an outsider in both worlds. Grew up on the reservation, ostracized with his mother.
But he's educated.
In a very unique way. He found an old scientific manual and, crucially, a copy of the complete works of William Shakespeare.
Shakespeare.
Yeah, left behind somehow. And Shakespeare becomes his entire framework for understanding the world, for expressing emotion. He quotes it constantly, often very aptly. He's fascinated by Linda's descriptions of the other place, the world state.
See, Bernard sees an opportunity here.
Definitely. He realizes bringing Linda and John back could save him from being exiled by the director. It's a trump card.
So he gets permission.
He does.
Yeah.
And their return to London is, well, dramatic. Bernard presents Linda and John right when the director is publicly denouncing him and announcing his transfer to Iceland.
The ultimate humiliation for the director.
Completely. John falls at his feet, calling him my father. The word father itself is obscene in the world state. The room erupts in laughter. The director flees in shame and resigns. Bernard is safe. For now.
And suddenly famous.
Briefly, yeah. He's John's guardian, basically. Yeah. He enjoys the attention, takes John around, shows him off, but doesn't last. Bernard gets arrogant, and people tire of him. Plus, John only really connects with Helmholtz, the writer, who appreciates his Shakespeare. John himself becomes increasingly horrified by the world state.
What horrifies him most?
The casual sex, the lack of deep feeling, the soma, the Bolkanovsky twins. It all feels empty, meaningless, even degraded compared to the intense, often tragic emotions in Shakespeare.
And his relationship with Lenina.
It's a disaster. He develops strong feelings for her based on his Shakespearean ideals of love and romance. But when she makes a typically casual world-state sexual advance, he reacts with violent revulsion, quoting lines about impurity and attacking her. He can't reconcile his ideals with her conditioning.
That's tragic. And then Linda?
Linda's story ends sadly, too. Back in the world state, she escapes her misery by going on a permanent summer holiday, basically overdosing slowly. John rushes to her deathbed.
And that causes a scene.
A huge one. His intense grief is completely out of place. A group of Delta twins comes in for their death conditioning, learning to see death as normal, unemotional. They're curious, unembarrassed, even cheerful about Linda dying. John is enraged by their disrespect and tries to stop them.
But death conditioning, that's incredibly bleak.
It really is, utterly stripped of human feeling. After Linda dies, John, completely distraught, sees Deltas lining up for their soma ration. In a frenzy, he tries to stop them, throws the soma away, tries to convince them it's poison, tries to free them.
How does that go?
It starts a riot. The Deltas just want their drug. The police arrive and subdue everyone easily with soma vapor and calming messages broadcast from speakers. Bernard and Helmholtz get caught up in it too.
Which leads to the big confrontation.
Yes. Bernard, Helmholtz, and John are brought before Mustafa Mond.
The world controller for Western Europe. One of the 10 controllers.
Exactly. He's brilliant, sophisticated, understands exactly what the world state sacrificed and why. He used to be a physicist himself, but chose to give up true science for stability.
And he explains the rationale.
He does, in a long, fascinating debate, mostly with John. Mond argues that art, literature like Shakespeare, intense emotions, family, religion, even scientific freedom, they all lead to instability. They had to be sacrificed for universal happiness.
The ultimate utilitarian argument, maximum happiness for the maximum number, even if it's a shallow happiness.
Precisely. He argues the caste system is necessary, that people like their conditioning. He reveals he reads Shakespeare himself, but keeps it hidden.
What happens to Bernard and Helmholtz?
They're exiled to islands. Mond actually presents it as a kind of reward, places where interesting nonconformists who couldn't fit into society are sent. People they can actually talk to. Bernard panics, but Helmholtz accepts it almost eagerly.
And John, does he get to go?
Mond refuses. He wants to continue the experiment, see what happens to the individual who insists on living differently within civilization.
So John rejects the world state entirely.
Completely. He has that famous line, after Mond lists all the things he'd lose, God, poetry, real danger, freedom, goodness, sin. John says, I claim them all. He demands the right to be unhappy.
Wow. A powerful rejection.
It is. So disgusted. He tries to escape civilization. He finds an abandoned lighthouse out in the countryside, tries to live a simple, ascetic life, purify himself.
How does he do that?
Through self-flagellation, whipping himself to drive out the contamination of the world state and his own desires, particularly for Lenina.
But he can't escape notice, can he?
No. Reporters see him, it becomes a sensation. A feelie maker, that's their immersive cinema named Darwin Bonaparte, films him secretly. The film's a hit.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Crowds flock to the lighthouse in helicopters chanting, "We want the whip," demanding he perform his self-punishment for them. It's grotesque.
And Lenina shows up?
Lenina arrives, possibly hoping for reconciliation. John sees her and snaps. He calls her a strumpet, whips her furiously, then turns the whip on himself in a frenzy.
And the crowd?
The crowd goes wild. It turns into a kind of vicarious, violent frenzy fueled by soma. And tragically, John gets swept up in it too. He participates in the orgy that follows.
The very thing he was trying to escape.
The ultimate violation of his own values. The next morning, he wakes up, remembers everything, and hangs himself.
A devastating end. A statement, really, about the impossibility of his kind of individualism in that world.
Absolutely. His values just couldn't survive there.
It's such a powerful novel, and its impact. Well, it's often compared to another giant of dystopian fiction, isn't it? Orwell's 1984.
It is. They're sort of the twin pillars of 20th century dystopia. And Huxley himself weighed in on the comparison.
What did he say?
He wrote a letter to Orwell after 1984 came out. He praised Orwell's book, but made this really insightful point. He basically said he believed future totalitarian regimes wouldn't rely so much on brute force. Orwell's flogging and kicking them into obedience.
But on what then?
On more subtle methods. Infant conditioning and narco-hypnosis, making people love their servitude, rather than just fearing the consequences of rebellion. Control through pleasure, not pain.
That distinction feels incredibly relevant. Neil Postman wrote about this, didn't he? In Amusing Ourselves to Death.
He did. He laid out the contrast brilliantly. Orwell feared those who would ban books. Huxley feared there would be no reason to ban a book because no one would want to read one.
Orwell feared information being withheld. Huxley feared we'd be drowned in so much information we'd become passive and egoistic.
Exactly. Orwell feared truth being concealed. Huxley feared truth being drowned in the sea of irrelevance.
Orwell feared control by inflicting pain. Huxley feared control by inflicting pleasure.
Yeah, Postman summed it up. Orwell feared that what we hate will ruin us. Huxley feared that what we love will ruin us.
That gives me chills, honestly. Which one feels more like our world today?
It's a question many people ask. Christopher Hitchens also had an interesting take. He argued Huxley was right, that such a regime built on pleasure could break because it couldn't bend. It relies on erasing history.
Whereas Orwell's regime was obsessed with rewriting history.
Right. Hitchens pointed to the Soviet Union eventually collapsing, partly because its historical lies became unsustainable. For Huxley's world to work, you need people who are blitzed out and vacant, with no real historical consciousness taught at all.
Fascinating distinction. And Huxley himself revisited these ideas later in life.
He did. Almost 30 years later, 1958, 1959, he wrote Brave New World Revisited. It's a series of essays.
And what was his conclusion then? Did he think his vision was coming true?
He concluded the world was moving towards his vision much faster than he originally thought. He looked at things like overpopulation, propaganda, drugs, subliminal messaging.
So he saw the trends accelerating.
Yes, but his own thinking had also evolved. He'd become deeply interested in Hindu Vedanta, mysticism.
Did that offer him any hope? A way out?
He proposed what he called a third alternative in a foreword he wrote for Brave New World back in 1946. He envisioned a potential sane community.
What would that look like?
Decentralized economics, cooperative politics, science and technology used consciously for human ends, not to control or enslave, all guided by the conscious and intelligent pursuit of man's final end, a sort of spiritual goal.
So a path between the insanity of the savage reservation and the insanity of the world state.
Exactly. It's a really interesting counterpoint he offers later, a potential positive vision.
And despite proposing alternatives, the original novel's legacy is undeniable. It's always on those best novel lists.
Consistently. Modern Library, The Observer, BBC polls. It's considered a major work of English literature. It's even been on UK postage stamps.
Yet it also has this long history of being challenged or banned.
Oh, frequently. Still happens today. The reasons cited are varied. Insensitivity, offensive language, supposed nudity, racism, drug use, clashing with religious views, being sexually explicit.
Where has it actually been banned?
Ireland banned it early on in 1932. India banned it in 1967. And it faces challenges in schools and libraries in the U.S. quite often.
Have there been questions about its originality? I feel like I've heard comparisons to other books.
There have been. People sometimes point to similarities with Yevgeny Zamyatin's We, which came earlier, or Rose Macaulay's Whatnot, but most critics see these less as direct plagiarism and more as different writers grappling with the same anxieties of the time.
What anxieties?
The rapid advance of technology, the rise of mass production, social engineering, eugenics. These were common fears and themes circulating that era. Huxley just gave them perhaps the most iconic and chilling expression.
So wrapping this up, Brave New World really forces us to look at control through pleasure, this idea of engineered happiness, what happens when individual freedom disappears.
And the ultimate cost of absolute stability. It fundamentally asks, what makes a society truly good? What are we willing to trade away for comfort and predictability?
It leaves you with so much to think about. And maybe here's a final thought for you, our listener. Considering everything we see today, the tech advancements are maybe infinite appetite for distractions, as Postman put it, which dystopia feels closer now. Orwell's boots stamping on a human face forever, or Huxley's world where we're gently, happily conditioned into loving our servitude.
Yeah, which vision feels more relevant to your Brave New World?
And perhaps thinking about Huxley's later ideas, what small steps could you even take towards building a bit more of that same community in your own life?
Definitely worth pondering.
If you haven't read it or haven't read it in a while, we absolutely encourage you to pick up Brave New World and maybe Brave New World Revisited too to get Huxley's later reflections. They are profoundly thought-provoking reads.
Welcome, Curious Minds, to the Deep Dive. If you've ever wanted a shortcut to really understanding our cosmic home, the Milky Way, well, this is probably it. Today, we're diving deep into the European Space Agency's Gaia spacecraft.
Yeah.
It's been this incredibly diligent cosmic cartographer for over a decade, and it has just wrapped up its mission, an extraordinary journey.
That's absolutely right. Gaia's primary goal was, well, it was nothing short of revolutionary, really, to measure the positions, distances, and motions of stars with just breathtaking precision, the ambition to construct the largest, most precise 3D map of our galaxy ever made. We're talking approximately 1 billion astronomical objects, a truly staggering number. And that includes not just stars, but planets, comets, asteroids, even distant quasars.
Wow. And for you listening, this deep dive is really designed to give you those surprising facts, those aha moments about the Milky Way.
Yeah.
You get a profound, sort of tangible understanding of our place in the universe, but without, feeling totally overwhelmed. All the insights we're sharing come straight from the detailed scientific overview of the Gaia mission itself. So let's get started.
Okay, so to really get our heads around Gaia's ambition, what exactly is it? And, why such a huge undertaking?
Right. So at its core, Gaia is an optical space observatory from ESA, the European Space Agency. It launched back in 2013 and just finished up operations in March 2025.
And it followed another mission, didn't it?
Yes, exactly. It's the direct successor to Hipparcos, which ran in the late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah.
Gaia basically took what Hipparcos did and multiplied its precision by like 100 times.
Yeah.
A massive leap. It was a key part of ESA's long-term science program, Horizon 2000 plus gun.
Oh, and I heard its name has a bit of a story. Huh? Yeah, a little bit. Originally, it stood for Global Astrometric Interferometer for Astrophysics. But the technique, the optical technique, actually changed during development.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but they kept the name Gaia anyway. Guess it's stuck.
Okay. And this wasn't cheap, I imagine.
Definitely not. We're talking around 740 million euros, about $1 billion US. And yeah, it finished a couple of years late and about 16% over budget.
Why was that?
Mostly down to some really tricky technical challenges. Polishing its special silicon carbide mirrors was apparently very difficult. And assembling the focal plane camera system, that massive detector, was also super complex.
Right, okay. So a complex beast.
Indeed. But the sheer scale of the science really justified that investment, Gaia had these core objectives that fundamentally changed things. First, measuring parallax with extreme precision.
Parallax. That's the tiny shift we see in a star's position as Gaia orbits the sun.
Right.
Tells us the distance.
Exactly. And nailing that distance lets us figure out a star's true intrinsic brightness, its luminosity, Knowing that is crucial. It helps us calibrate what we call standard candles.
Like those Cepheid variable stars.
Precisely. Stars with a known brightness. If we know how bright they really are and how bright they look, we can calculate distances much further out. That helps refine distance scales across the universe, even improves our measure of how fast the universe is expanding.
Wow. Okay, so big picture stuff from tiny measurements.
Definitely. Second, by observing a billion objects, about 1% of all the stars in the Milky Way Gaia gave us this unprecedented, unbiased view of stellar populations, what kinds of stars are out there, how common are different types, all that. And this huge data set, observing so many stars over such a long time, gave amazing insights into rapid phases of stellar evolution, too.
And the third thing.
The dynamics. By mapping not just where stars are, but how they're moving their positions and motions across the sky, Gaia provided the critical data to understand how our whole galaxy works, how it formed, how it spins, how different groups of stars interact. And just to reiterate the scale, about a billion objects monitored, including thousands of Jupiter-sized exoplanets, 500,000 quasars, tens of thousands of asteroids and comets, and each one observed roughly 70 times over the main mission.
That is just a staggering amount of data. Okay, so how on Earth, how 1.5 million kilometers from Earth did Gaia achieve that accuracy? The launch itself sounds like a big deal. December 19, 2013, Soyuz rocket, French Guiana.
Yep, and then it traveled to its operational spot.
The L2 point.
Exactly, a Lissajous orbit around the Sun-Earth L2 Lagrangian point.
Why there? What's special about L2?
Think of it like a gravitational balancing point out beyond Earth's orbit. It's incredibly stable, both gravitationally and thermally. Very cold, very constant temperature. And crucially, the Earth and Sun are always in roughly the same direction, so Gaia could point its telescopes away without sun blockage, giving it a clear view.
Makes sense. And the spacecraft design itself sounds pretty innovative, that huge sun shield.
Oh yeah, 10 meters across. And it wasn't just shade, it stayed at a fixed 45-degree angle to the sun, and the whole spacecraft sort of precessed, slowly spun to scan the sky. This kept the telescopes incredibly cold, which is vital for infrared and precise optical measurements. We're talking minus 170 Celsius.
Brr.
But the sun-facing side, with the solar panels, could get up to 70 degrees C, so huge temperature extremes, and it also generated all the power for the spacecraft.
And the way it pointed itself was unique too, right? No reaction wheels.
That's right, no traditional spinning wheels or gyroscopes for pointing. Instead, it used these tiny thrusters firing incredibly small puffs of cold nitrogen gas, like 1.5 micrograms per second.
Micrograms.
Yeah, minuscule amounts. But it provided super fine, super stable pointing control, mounted on this incredibly rigid silicon carbide frame, essential for the measurements.
Okay, so that stability was key for the instruments. What were they actually measuring?
Right, the payload. 3 main scientific instruments. First, the astrometry instrument, or ASTRO, that was Gaia's core. Its job was to pin down the angular positions, the parallax for distance, and the proper motion for stars greater than magnitude 20.
Proper motion. That's the stars moving across the sky as we see it.
Exactly, its velocity projected onto the plane of the sky. Then you had the photometric instrument, BPRP, for blue and red photometers. This measured the brightness and color of stars across a wide spectrum. Analyzing that light tells you about the star's properties, its temperature, mass, age, even what elements it's made of. Again, down to magnitude 20.
Okay. And the third one?
The radial velocity spectrometer, RVS. This measured velocity along our line of sight. Is the star moving towards us or away from us? It did this by taking high-resolution spectra, basically splitting the star's light into a rainbow, and looking for Doppler shifts. This worked for stars up to magnitude 17, and these radial velocity measurements are absolutely vital. They help correct for something called perspective acceleration.
Perspective acceleration.
Yeah, it's the apparent acceleration stars seem to have just because we, the solar system, are moving around the galactic center. RVS helps untangle that.
Got it. So how did it all work together to get that precision, the scanning?
It was ingenious. Gaia had 2 telescopes looking out at a fixed angle of 106.5 degrees from each other. The whole spacecraft rotated continuously once every 6 hours. This swept the 2 fields of view across the sky in a great circle, scanning a strip about 0.7 degrees wide.
Okay.
And then the spin axis itself slowly precessed, tracing out a cone shape over 63 days. This combination meant it scanned the entire sky multiple times in a complex, overlapping pattern over the mission lifetime.
And the camera system, you mentioned it was huge.
Oh, immense. The focal plane array was about a meter by half a meter, packed with 106 very sensitive CCD detectors, altogether nearly a gigapixel, a billion pixels staring at the sky.
Incredible.
Each star or object would rift across this focal plane and get measured by multiple CCDs as the spacecraft rotated. And an onboard atomic clock, a rubidium one, ensured the timing of each observation was known to nanosecond precision. Absolutely critical.
And all this feeds into, what was it, the BCRS?
Yes, the barycentric celestial reference system. Think of it as the ultimate cosmic coordinate grid. It's the fundamental reference frame used in astronomy and navigation, defined by the positions of distant quasars. Gaia's data massively improved the BCRS, making it incredibly precise. It even has to account for things like Einstein's relativity, like light bending around massive objects.
Yeah, what kind of accuracy are we talking about in the end?
It's truly mind-boggling. For brighter stars, say magnitudes 3 to 12, the accuracy for position and parallax reached about 6.7 microarcseconds or even better.
Microarcseconds. How small is that?
It's tiny, like seeing a coin on the moon from Earth, or, as the saying goes, identifying someone's left eye if they were standing on the moon.
Ew.
For fainter stars, near magnitude 20, it was still hundreds of microarcseconds. Compare that to Hipparcos, its predecessor.
Yeah.
Its very best accuracy was around 100 microarcseconds. Gaia was a whole different league.
That's just, yeah, mind-boggling is the word. But, missions this complex rarely go perfectly smoothly. Gaia must have faced some challenges.
Oh, absolutely. No mission escapes unexpected hurdles. Right from the start, actually. The launch itself got pushed back a bit in October 2013.
Why was that?
Well, it was purely precautionary. They decided to replace 2 transponders on the rocket. Apparently, an identical component had failed on a completely different satellite, so they took no chances. Better safe than sorry.
Sensible. What else?
Then, not long after launch, the team noticed something unexpected. Stray light was getting into the telescopes. More than anticipated.
Stray light. Where from?
Initially, they thought it might be ice forming on the spacecraft and scattering sunlight. But it turned out to be, well, it was microscopic fibers from the edge of the sunshield itself kind of poking out and catching the light.
Ah, did that cause big problems?
It had an impact, yeah, but thankfully modest overall. It mainly affected the measurements of the faintest stars, and it hit the RVS spectrograph a bit harder. But the engineers were brilliant. They developed mitigation strategies, software fixes basically to minimize the effect. It's funny, there was actually a similar issue with stray light baffling on an infrared telescope flown on the space shuttle decades ago. History repeating itself, sort of.
Always something. And I heard there were issues later on, too, like getting hit by something.
You're right. Much later, in April 2024, Gaia actually got hit by a tiny micrometeoroid. Space dust, essentially. It damaged part of its protective cover, which caused some occasional disruptions from stray sunlight getting in.
Ouch.
And then, just in May 2024, one of the CCD detectors failed. It started producing false detections, so the engineers had to perform one final, very delicate refocusing of Gaia's optics to work around it.
Wow. Despite all that, it sounds like it was incredibly resilient. Did these issues ever really threaten the main science goals?
The team was always confident they could handle it. The impact on the core mission, the really bright stars, and the overall map was pretty minimal. It really speaks volumes about the spacecraft's robust design and the quick thinking of the operations team back on Earth. They kept finding solutions.
Which probably explains why the mission kept getting extended.
Exactly. It was initially planned for 5 years, but it got extended multiple times, first to 2020, then 2022, and finally that indicative extension to early 2025.
Why? Did it just keep working better than expected?
Pretty much. The detectors, those CCDs, were degrading much, much slower than the engineers had predicted. They were incredibly durable.
So what finally limited its lifespan?
It came down to fuel, essentially.
Oh.
The nitrogen gas for those tiny micropropulsion thrusters, that cold gas was absolutely essential for the super precise pointing needed for the measurements. Eventually, you just run out.
Right, like a car running out of gas.
Sort of, yeah. A very, very precise car. Oh, another interesting thing. Gaia actually performed better than planned in one respect. It was designed to observe stars fainter than magnitude 5.7. Brighter stars were thought to saturate the detectors. But during commissioning, they realized it could actually handle stars as bright as magnitude 3. So they expanded its routine observing range to cover magnitude 3 all the way down to 20. A great bonus, captured many more famous bright stars.
That's fantastic. So after all those years, all those observations, overcoming the challenges,
Yeah.
what did it all give us? Let's get into the data and the discoveries. The sheer volume sounds
Oh,
immense.
it is. Around 60 terabytes of raw data downloaded from the spacecraft itself. Once processed and uncompressed on the ground, that swells to about 200 terabytes of usable science data. Just
Huh?
enormous.
200 terabytes. How is all that even processed?
It takes a huge effort by a dedicated consortium across Europe. It's called DPAC, the Data Processing and Analysis Consortium. Hundreds of scientists and engineers, funded by the participating ESA member states, working for years to turn those raw signals into meaningful catalogs.
And getting the data down from L2, how did that work?
Gaia transmitted data back to Earth for about 8 hours every day at a rate of 5 megabits per second, which is, decent, but not super fast by today's standards. The signals were picked up by ESA's big ESTRAC network dishes, antennas in Spain, Argentina, Australia, tracking Gaia as the Earth rotated.
Okay. And this data came out in stages, right? These data releases.
Exactly. The data releases themselves kind of tell the story of the mission's progress, each one building on the last with more data and better processing. DR1, Data Release 1, came out in September 2016. That was the first big map. It gave positions and brightness for 1.1 billion stars, a huge number right off the bat. It also combined early Gaia data with the older Hipparcos data to get positions, parallax, and proper motions for about 2 million brighter stars, a first taste of the 3D motion map. Plus light curves for some variable stars and positions for over 2,000 quasars to start anchoring that reference frame, the BCRS.
So that laid the groundwork.
Precisely. Then came DR2 in April 2018, based on 22 months of observations. This was a really big leap. It gave us positions, parallax, and proper motions, the full 3D position in 2D motion for a massive 1.3 billion stars, plus color information, the photometry, for 1.1 billion stars. And crucially, the first radial velocities, that line of sight motion, for 7 million stars. Suddenly, the galaxy wasn't just a static picture. We could see its movement in 3 dimensions. It also included data on 14,000 asteroids and comets.
Game changer, sounds like.
Absolutely. Then came EDR3, the early data release 3, in December 2020, based on 34 months of data. This focused on even better astrometry positions, parallax, proper motions with improved precision. It also delivered a new, even more accurate celestial reference frame, Gaia CRF3, based on 1.6 million quasars and galaxies. And it gave us the Gaia catalog of nearby stars, over 330,000 stars within about 330 light years. Our local neighborhood mapped like never before.
Wow, our backyard in detail.
Exactly. And the full DR3 followed in June 2022. This included everything from EDR3, but added a whole lot more. Much more solar system data, loads on variable stars, information on binary and multiple star systems, more quasars, even data on extended objects like galaxies and nebulae, and critically, astrophysical parameters derive properties like temperature, gravity, metallicity for hundreds of millions of stars. That's where you really start doing astrophysics.
Okay, so each release added more layers, more detail. What's next?
We're now looking forward to DR4, Data Release 4. It's planned for no earlier than mid-2026. That's expected to use even more data and improved processing, aiming for astrometric precision about 1.7 times better than DR2.
Another big jump.
Hopefully. And then the final catalog, the ultimate product, DR5. That's tentatively scheduled for no earlier than the end of 2030. That should incorporate all the mission data, processed with the final calibrations and algorithms. It's aiming to be about 1.4 times more precise again than DR4. And the best part, all this data, every release, is made completely public, free to access online for anyone in the world.
That's fantastic for science. Okay, so with all this incredible data, what are some of the biggest discoveries, the real headline grabbers? Well, starting with mapping the galaxy's structure and history, Gaia has been truly revolutionary. Back in October 2018, remember the discovery of Gaia Enceladus?
Oh yeah, the sausage. That was huge.
Right. The remnants of this massive galaxy that merged with the Milky Way about 10 billion years ago. And the data suggested this merger essentially created a big part of our galaxy, the thick disk. It's linked to a bunch of globular clusters, too. It's like finding the foundation stones of the Milky Way.
A major piece of galactic archaeology.
Definitely. Then just a month later, November 2018, came Antlia 2, this enormous ghostly galaxy, as big as the Large Magellanic Cloud, but 10,000 times fainter.
Yeah, the lowest surface brightness galaxy ever found. Really challenges our ideas about dark matter and how galaxies form, doesn't it? Suggests there might be many more like it hiding out there.
Exactly. Fast forward to January 2020, and the Radcliffe wave was announced. This enormous wave-like structure made of gas stretching thousands of light years, and it's a major nursery for new stars right in our galactic neighborhood.
It completely changed our view of local star formation. We thought these regions were more scattered, but this showed a huge coherent structure linking many of them.
And even more recently, March 2024, Gaia helped uncover Shakti and Shiva. These two ancient streams of stars formed over 12 billion years ago, maybe even before the Gaia-Enceladus merger.
Fossils from the Milky Way's very, very early days. Incredible find.
It really is rewriting the history books.
And beyond the big structures, Gaia's been amazing for understanding stellar systems and populations too. Like the Gaia ESO survey back in 2017. Using Gaia data, they pinned down lots of binary, triple, even quadruple star systems, including one, HD 74438, that looks like it might be a future Type Ia supernova. Those are crucial for measuring cosmic distances.
Right, the standard candles again.
Exactly. And then there was the sculpted dwarf galaxy result, also in 2017. Gaia measured its 3D motion with such precision. They said it was like seeing something smaller than a pinhead move on the moon viewed from Earth.
That tiny motion revealed its orbit around the Milky Way is highly elliptical. Tells us how these small galaxies interact and merge with bigger ones.
And what about those hyper-runaway stars found in 2018?
Oh yeah. Stars moving so fast they're literally being ejected from the Milky Way.
Some are leaving, some are actually coming in, maybe from other galaxies, though there were some data caveats there.
Still, it points to incredibly energetic events, right? Maybe interactions near the supermassive black hole at the galactic center, or powerful supernova kicks.
Extreme astrophysics in action.
And Gaia hasn't just looked outwards. It's told us things about our own solar system and its place in the cosmos. Like in November 2020, it measured the solar system's acceleration towards the galactic center. Tiny, tiny number, 0.23 nanometers per second squared.
Seems small, but knowing that precise motion is vital for correcting all other astronomical measurements.
Absolutely. And then there's the whole exoplanet revolution Gaia is contributing to. It found its first transiting exoplanet, Gaia 1b, a Jupiter-sized world, confirmed in 2022, along with Gaia 2b.
Right, finding planets by the dip in starlight as they pass in front.
But then, in September 2023, came Gaia 3b. And this was special, wasn't it?
Yes. Gaia 3b, another giant planet, was the first exoplanet confirmed solely through astrometry. Gaia detected the tiny wobble the planet's gravity induces on its host star as they orbit their common center of mass.
Proving Gaia's core technique could find planets directly. That's huge.
A major milestone. And it also found one via microlensing. Gaia 22D carry Phi, so it's using multiple techniques.
And it's even finding black holes. Gaia BH1, discovered in November 2022, the closest known black hole to Earth, about 1,600 light years away.
Right, a stellar mass black hole with a sun-like star orbiting it, found because Gaia saw the stars wobble, but there was no visible companion causing it.
It's just empty space where something massive had to be. Amazing. And then Gaia BH2 followed in February 2023.
These discoveries are helping us find the population of dormant black holes, which are really hard to spot otherwise.
And looking ahead, there's a plan to use Gaia data to build a detailed 3D map of interstellar dust in the Milky Way.
Yes, expected around 2025, that will be invaluable for understanding how starlight gets dimmed and reddened as it travels through the galaxy, crucial for interpreting observations.
Wow. The discoveries just keep coming. But the spacecraft's operational journey itself, that part is now over. Its final targeted observation was January 10th, 2025.
That's right. End of an era for the flight team.
And then it was officially decommissioned on March 27th, 2025. What does that involve?
Well, before switching everything off, they commanded Gaia to perform a final engine burn. Not a big one, just enough to nudge it out of its L2 orbit and into a stable heliocentric path, orbiting the sun independently.
Why do that?
To make sure it doesn't interfere with any future missions that might want to use the L2 region. Good orbital hygiene, basically. And of course, they made sure all the remaining science and engineering data stored on board was successfully downlinked first.
So the spacecraft is silent now, drifting around the sun. But the mission isn't truly over.
Not at all. It's now entered the crucial post-operations phase. All the focus for the DPAC consortium for the next several years is on refining the data processing, understanding all the instrument calibrations perfectly, and producing those final definitive data releases, especially DR5, which is slated for the end of 2030. That's the grand finale catalog.
So the analysis and discoveries will continue for years, decades even.
Absolutely. Gaia's legacy is still unfolding, and people are already thinking about what comes next. There's a proposal being studied called Gaia near infrared.
Ah, expanding into infrared.
Exactly. The idea would be to build on Gaia's success, but observe in near-infrared light that would let it see through dust much better, map the obscured regions of the galaxy, study cooler stars, and potentially improve precision even further. It's one of the concepts being considered for ESA's big Voyage 2050 science program. So the spirit of Gaia might fly again.
That's exciting to think about.
Yeah, so summing it all up, Gaia really has been a monumental achievement in space science. It meticulously built the most precise, most comprehensive 3D map of our galaxy ever conceived. There's just nothing else like it. It's fundamentally transformed how we understand the Milky Way. Its birth, its structure, how it moves, how it's still evolving. It's like we were living in a house and suddenly someone handed us the complete architectural blueprints.
That's a great way to put it. And with this extraordinary new atlas of our galactic neighborhood, just think about that. How mapping something so vast, so ancient, can actually reveal the tiniest, most surprising details about the universe around us. And it's definitely going to shape where we look next. So here's a thought for you. What new cosmic questions will you explore now that we have this incredible map? If you want to dive in yourself seriously, look up Gaia Sky. It's this amazing free visualization tool where you can actually fly through Gaia's data in 3D. It's mind-blowing.
What does it truly mean to honor those lost in conflict? Especially, when their individual identities are just gone forever. It's a really profound question, touches on memory, sacrifice, the very idea of national remembrance.
It really does.
So today we're taking a deep dive into the fascinating and often quite poignant history and symbolism of the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier.
Right. And these are often very high-profile national monuments. You find them in many nations. They're dedicated to the service of an unknown soldier, but also the collective memory of all soldiers killed whose remains aren't identified.
Okay.
What's truly significant, I think, is how the concept really solidified and spread globally after World War I. That marked a fundamental shift in how nations grieve their fallen.
And our mission for this deep dive, then, is to unearth the surprising origins of this practice, understand its profound symbolism, and explore some of the most, striking examples from around the world. By the end, you'll gain a unique understanding, hopefully, of how these monuments don't just mark a grave, but actually shape a nation's collective memory of sacrifice.
It's easy to assume these powerful memorials are relatively modern, maybe a product of 20th century warfare.
Yeah, that's what I would have thought.
But an intriguing observation is that the earliest known precedent actually takes us way back to Jinju, Korea.
Korea. When?
1592. During the Injin War, that was a major conflict involving Korea, China, and Japan. A shrine was established there commemorating those who died defending Korea.
Wow, 1592.
And what's really unique about it, its inclusivity. It remembered civilians as well as soldiers who died defending the city.
It's different.
Very different for the time. And the state offered sacrifices for these dead twice a year, spring and autumn, and kept that practice going all the way until 1908.
That's incredible. Centuries before what many of us might think of as the start of this. And the longevity, over 300 years, it really makes you wonder about the depth of their values compared to maybe the more event-driven European monuments.
That's a great point. The continuity is remarkable.
So bringing it back to Europe then, when did the first such monument appear there?
Well, Europe's first known monument dedicated to an unknown soldier is the Landsoldaten. That translates to Valiant Soldier Square.
Okay.
It's in Fredericia, Denmark. And it was created back in 1849, commemorating the First Schleswig War.
1849. So still quite early, but significantly later than Korea.
Right.
Okay, so we have these earlier significant examples, but then comes World War I. You mentioned it reshaped everything. How did the idea of the unknown soldier transform into such a widespread global movement after that immense conflict?
It's a really compelling story, actually. It seems like there were parallel, almost independent developments happening in both the UK and France. Like the collective need for this symbol just emerged simultaneously.
Really? Not coordinated?
Doesn't seem like it initially. In the UK, it started with Reverend David Railton. He was a British Army chaplain serving on the Western Front. He saw a simple grave marked an unknown British soldier. and it had just sparked this idea.
Mm-hmm.
He thought, we need to bring this anonymity, this representation, to national prominence back home.
Mm.
His suggestion for a national unknown warrior got wide support pretty quickly. The Dean of Westminster, Prime Minister David Lloyd George, even King George V got behind it.
Wow.
And then, simultaneously over in France, in November 1916, a local officer proposed burying an unknown soldier in the Pantheon in Paris.
Also during the war.
Exactly. That concept gained traction, led to a formal bill in Parliament in November 1918, right after the armistice, and it was voted into law in September 1919.
So both moving forward around the same time.
Precisely. And then, in this remarkable act of shared remembrance, both countries conducted services on Armistice Day, November 11, 1920.
Second anniversary.
Yes. The UK's Tomb of the Unknown Warrior was created right there in Westminster Abbey. Meanwhile, France's La Tombe du Soldat Inconnu was placed under the Arc de Triomphe.
Right in the heart of Paris.
Though the actual burial in France took place a bit later, in January 1921.
Okay.
But from that point, the idea just spread globally with incredible speed. It's really a testament to how profoundly this concept resonated.
It must have struck a chord.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
In 1921 alone, just the next year, the United States unveiled theirs at Arlington.
Mm-hmm.
Portugal created its Túmulo do Soldado Desconhecido, and Italy its Tomba del Milite Ignoto. And then many, many other nations followed suit very quickly.
That really shows how universal the need became. And, while soldier's the common term, it's interesting how some nations chose to honor other service members, too. It highlights different aspects of their military history, almost expanding who the unknown represents.
That's absolutely right. We see variations, like in Chile and Ukraine, for instance. They unveiled second unknown tombs, specifically to commemorate the unknown sailor.
Okay.
And in Serbia, there's the Monument to the Unknown Hero on Mount Avila, near Belgrade, which commemorates World War I soldiers broadly. So it shows a broader understanding of sacrifice beyond just land forces.
That brings us to the core, really. Beyond the individual stories and locations, what's the deep underlying meaning behind this universal practice? What makes honoring the unknown so powerful across so many different cultures and conflicts?
Well, the core symbolism is quite profound. These tombs typically contain the remains of a soldier, considered genuinely impossible to identify. Sometimes they're inscribed with phrases like, known but to God.
Right.
That anonymity is absolutely crucial. It means the tomb could represent anyone who fell in service. And because it could be anyone, it comes to symbolize all sacrifices for the nation.
So it's personal and collective at the same time.
Exactly. The true genius, I think, of the unknown soldier concept, especially coming out of the horrors of World War I with its industrial scale of death, was its ability to universalize grief. It transformed countless individual, private tragedies into a single national narrative of sacrifice that every citizen could connect with, could claim as their own.
It represents the collective loss, the unquantifiable human cost. That's a really powerful interpretation. But it does raise an important question for today, doesn't it? With modern technology, DNA analysis, and so on, are soldiers still truly unknown in the same way? If we can now identify almost anyone, does that fundamentally change the meaning of an unknown soldier for future generations? Does it make these existing tombs sort of relics of an older time, or does their symbolism adapt?
That's a fascinating and crucial point. You're right. Many soldiers who were once unidentified have indeed been identified through DNA analysis.
Yeah.
The first such identification, for instance, was an American airman from the Vietnam War whose remains were in the U.S. tomb. He was later identified and returned to his family.
Right. I remember that.
Yeah. So it provides this really interesting contrast to the very concept of unknown that these tombs represent. It forces us to consider, is the unknown about a literal lack of information anymore, or is it more about a deliberate choice for symbolic power?
Okay, we've traced the concept's powerful origins, the deep symbolism. Now, this is where it gets really interesting for me. Let's unpack this and explore some specific details, some powerful examples that really illustrate this global phenomenon. What makes certain ones so compelling?
Okay, great idea. Let's start maybe with Greece. The tomb of the unknown soldier in Syntagma Square, Athens.
Right in front of the Parliament building, isn't it?
Exactly. It's technically a cenotaph, meaning it's a monument, but the actual remains might be elsewhere or symbolic. What really stands out here are two significant quotes inscribed on the retaining wall. They're from Thucydides, from Pericles' famous funeral oration.
Ah, the classic.
Yes. One says, roughly translated, and one bed is carried empty, made for the unknown ones, and the other, the whole earth is the burial ground of famous men.
Powerful stuff.
It shows how deeply this idea of honoring the anonymous, yet famous in their sacrifice, is woven into Greek thought for millennia. And of course, it's guarded around the clock by the Evzones, the presidential guard, with their very distinctive uniforms and ceremony.
Okay, where next?
Well, let's jump to India. Amar Jawan Jyoti, the flame of the immortal soldier. This has been burning since 1971, under the India Gate Arch in New Delhi.
A flame, that's different.
Yes. The shrine itself is a black marble cenotaph, fairly simple, a rifle standing on its barrel, crested by a soldier's helmet. And inscribed on each face in Hindi is Amar Jawan, immortal warrior.
Immortal warrior.
The focus here is really unique. It's on that living flame as the central act of remembrance. It's a perpetual homage, and the Prime Minister of India pays respects there every Republic Day.
A continuous act of remembrance.
Exactly. Now, maybe Lebanon, the tomb of the unknown soldier in Beirut, in the Paf district. This one uniquely captures a nation's formation.
How so?
It explicitly represents the independence of the Lebanese armed forces from the French army in 1943. So it blends remembrance of past conflicts, like soldiers from the Legion of Orient and the Army of the Levant during the French Mandate period from 1920 to 1943, with this powerful statement of national sovereignty.
Interesting link to independence.
Very. The cenotaph features a Cedrus labani tree, the cedar of Lebanon, surrounded by laurel leaves. And the Arabic inscription reads, "Glory and immortality for our martyred heroes." What's also fascinating is that original Roman columns stand right behind it, connecting this modern nation's sacrifice back through millennia of history on that land.
That's quite a layering of history.
It is. Then, maybe New Zealand.
Mm-hmm.
Their Tomb of the Unknown Warrior at the National War Memorial in Wellington has a more recent, very deliberate history.
Okay.
In 2004, an unknown New Zealand soldier was specifically chosen and exhumed from a Commonwealth War Graves Commission cemetery in France. Caterpillar Valley Cemetery, actually.
Yeah.
And he was repatriated, brought home to New Zealand.
So they brought one back specifically for this purpose.
Yes. He now represents over 18,000 New Zealand forces who lost their lives in World War I alone, and thousands more from other conflicts. And there's a special headstone back in France marking his original resting place, noting he's now in New Zealand. It was a very powerful, modern act of bringing an unknown representative home.
That feels very personal somehow.
It does. And finally, let's touch on the United States. While the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier at Arlington National Cemetery is probably the most famous globally.
Guarded 2047, the Sentinels.
Exactly. But there's another really poignant monument also at Arlington, the Civil War Unknowns Monument.
Oh, right, from the Civil War.
Yes. It holds the remains of 2,111 unknown soldiers, both Union and Confederates, gathered from battlefields around Washington, D.C. This monument is particularly powerful, I think, in its symbolism of healing and unification after such a devastating internal conflict. It honors all who fell, regardless of which side they fought on.
Acknowledging the cost to the whole nation.
Precisely.
Okay, so we've seen these incredible examples, the history, the symbolism. What does this all mean for us today? Why should you, listening now, care about these historical markers that might seem quite removed from our daily lives?
Well, these tombs, in all their global variations and specific details, they really serve as enduring testaments to collective memory. They remind us of the immense cost of conflict, yes, but also that shared human desire to honor sacrifice, no matter where or when it occurred. They invite us, I think, to consider the anonymous individual behind the uniform and the countless lives like theirs that form the fabric of national identity and history. They aren't just monuments, they're profound statements about collective grief, national purpose, and remembrance.
This deep dive has really shown how the concept of the unknown soldier, stretching from ancient Korea right through to these modern national monuments, encapsulates such a powerful idea. Collective mourning, remembrance. It's truly a universal language of loss and honor.
They truly reaffirm the enduring power of these symbols. Symbols of national identity, profound sacrifice, connecting people across generations and conflicts in a very tangible way. They allow a nation, really, to grieve what perhaps cannot be individually grieved anymore.
So here's a final thought maybe for you to consider. Despite our increasing ability, as we discussed, to identify remains using modern science, like DNA analysis, think about how the continued creation and reverence for tombs of the unknown soldier might reinforce their purpose. Perhaps it's less about the literal inability to identify someone now
Hmm.
and more about their enduring power as symbols of collective sacrifice, something that transcends individual identification. It really invites reflection, doesn't it, on whether the unknown aspect is less about a lack of data and more about the deliberate, anonymous meaning of service itself, something that allows an entire nation to project its grief, its gratitude onto a single sacred space.